Up next, we have a session from Alla Tytarenko from devtodev, who's going to be talking about breaking silos and using data to democratize and maximize team efforts. So please, warm welcome on board.
Hi, everyone. Let's start. My name is Alla. I'm from devtodev, and we're a product analytics platform for game developers. And we're helping maximize games LTV and provide tools to understand user behavior and drive product growth through data-driven insights. And first, thanks for being here. I know it's the second day of the conference. It's after lunch. I know everyone is very exhausted, and those 2 days have been very active, so thanks for being here. And I'll try to keep it light, bright, and very informative. So quick intro about myself. I've been in gaming industry for the last 8 years. And here's a snapshot at our awesome devtodev team. And as you may see by the Christmas trees, those pictures have been pretty recent. And we have offices in Cyprus, in Vilnius, Lithuania. So we are used to working remotely from each other and sharing the same data language, and to be able to communicate the same data language is vital for us. And that's why this topic is very important for us, as for any gaming company as well. So let's break data silos together, and let's try to unveil why data silos actually exist and why they mean. Well, sometimes teams are working isolated from each other, and they sometimes look at the same metrics, but they are working isolated from each other, and they have different sources of the same data. And sometimes different departments have separate goals for themselves that are not necessarily aligned with the whole company's goals. And sometimes they operate different KPIs and metrics, and therefore those silos are created and teams are working in them. So it's important to break them to be able to grow products together. So today's topic is actually how to break the data silos. And we'll start with creating a unified data strategy. Then we will move forward to shared KPIs and metrics. And finally, in the end, we'll empower all teams and find out how to do that with accessible users for the whole team. And hopefully, in the end, we'll get to letting us and letting data guide our data-driven decisions and move products forward. So why data silos are a problem? Well, from our experience and from experience from our clients as well, sometimes users within the same company might have limited access to data, and they have inconsistent metrics and KPIs, because sometimes for you, this metrics means one thing, and for the other team, it means completely other thing, and you have to move Slack messages back and forth all the time, or wait for reports for a very long time. And in the end, you're duplicating your team's efforts, and sometimes you're waiting for such a long time for example, the report that is necessary to make some of the decisions or on implementing a new feature, and you end up waiting for it for a very long time, and then you're like, okay, fine, I'm just gonna skip it and download this report or just create an SQL query. And in the end, you get the same report from your data team. And it's actually a manager's nightmare, because you're duplicating team's efforts and you're doing someone else's job. And in the end, you could have spent this time doing something else and probably more efficiently. So, and it all comes from being isolated from the common data language. Sometimes it's unclear who owns the data, who's responsible for updating the data. Well, it actually is a nightmare, and it causes delays in making decisions. The priorities are conflicted, teams are irritated, nobody is happy, and sometimes data that you operated is already outdated. Well, it's not nice, and it ends up in slowing the product growth. And in the end, well, of course, nobody wants that. So a bit of therapy here. First step in solving any problem is actually recognizing that you have one. And from my experience and from experience from our clients as well, the main causes of operating in isolated data silos are having no clear data strategy. Sometimes metrics are inconsistent through the teams, and definitions are not the same for every team member. Sometimes could be that there is a very high data access threshold, especially for non-technical users. It is pretty complicated to get access to the data and actually make data-driven decisions out of it. So what could be a solution? Well, let's start with creating a unified data strategy. Now, I know this may sound a bit overwhelming, but even if you're moving slowly in the direction of having this common strategy and unified data strategy, even small steps count in that direction. You could simply start with making an inventory list of all the tools that all the teams are using. Well, it could be this it could be like a small spreadsheet, divided by the product, by the teams, and just simply list out all the tools that all those teams are using. Those could be, then start looking into overlapping tools, or maybe the gaps in the tools, in the gaps that you see that somebody is actually using maybe not the most sophisticated tools that they should, and it slows down their decision process. After you've done that, you need to define the metrics and shared KPIs that your team is focusing on. And for that, you just agree on core metrics. For example, you can agree that your whole team focuses on retention, ARPU, and LTV. The next step would be just figuring out what those metrics mean for each team. And with the case, if we're talking about retention, for example, for the C-level, the retention could mean rolling retention. For product team, the retention would be a classic retention. And for marketing team, the retention would be a 24-hour retention. And if you don't align on those terms, you can end up with 3 different numbers. And well, then you'll spend hours and days figuring out which one you should use, which one you're operating, and why your data does not align. So once you align, you can, for example, agree that, okay, we're calculating retention as a percentage of users who is coming back within the 24-hour period. Okay, you have it set in stone, and it could be a Confluence page, it could be a Notion page, it could be a doc entry, but the main thing is to have this shared access to this entry and have those standardized definitions similar, like easily accessible for the whole team. Then you're syncing teams on those main metrics, and then using the source as a single source of truth when making data-driven decisions. The next step would be empowering all teams with accessible tools. And the first step could be having a data governance, having someone in your team to overlook data governance. So for example, if you have a very large team, it could be a whole department. If your team is smaller, it could be one person who is responsible, or even half a person. Maybe somebody will share those responsibilities with everyday job, but there is one person who is responsible for creating dashboard, for having tool stack, and thinking about shareable dashboards, think automated dashboards that are simplifying usage of analytics and access to data for non-analytics and non-tech users. Think automated reporting and shared dashboards. For example, at devtodev, it could be a shared dashboard that you can have user activity, in-game balance, retention metrics, with the comments, with a clear description that is easily accessible for the whole team. And you can actually tag users over there and have maybe a small discussion and to go through all those metrics. And that's pretty convenient and pretty easily maintained. You can set it up once and then just go with it. Once you get there, you can actually use data to guide decisions and resolve conflicts if you have some. Well, because data is neutral and you know that this is the same data for the whole team, And it's not someone else's opinion over someone else's opinion, and you're figuring out, okay, whose opinion is more important. It's actually data and metrics. And you set a clear success metrics, and you know that these criteria are the same for the whole team and for this project. And then you can actually test those ideas if, for example, you decide to have the button green or red, and you can actually test those assumptions with A/B experiments and not rely on someone else's thought and opinion in that. So let's move to the case study from one of our clients. This is a gaming studio. They have a few Match-3 projects. And when they came to us, they had a real clear problem, which they described as data chaos. They didn't know how to use the data. For example, they were implementing a feature, and they couldn't really use that experience across different teams because it took a lot of Slack messages and huddles to go back and forth with the metrics. And once they implemented devtodev, they centralized their data, and devtodev helped them align their product, marketing, and tech teams. For the outcome, they gave us actually recent feedback a few weeks ago that they said that they reduced decision time, and communication became so much easier within the teams, and it was actually pretty easy. Well, it was easier to use other teams' experiences. For example, when they implemented new features, they could rely on those metrics and actually use them as benchmarks. And well, as a nice bonus, they reduced the amount of tools that they were having because they were able to use devtodev's A/B tests and push notifications, which they used as from the third parties, and they're all integrated in devtodev. So that's pretty awesome. Of course, that didn't happen in one day, but it's definitely simplified their life. Remember this tool stack? It's actually another case study from one of our clients. Before they implemented devtodev, they had pretty chaotic and overlapping tools. Different teams used different tools for basically the same thing. And once they were figuring out, okay, what they need to change, and they decided they will be moving forward and integrated devtodev, they cleared out their tool stack, make it slicker and actually more efficient. And well, of course, that really helped, and that makes us really happy. It didn't happen, of course, in one day as well, but in the end, the whole integration of devtodev took them only 4 hours. And another case study from our clients, well, it's not actually a case study. It's a small feedback on how devtodev helped mobile gaming studio clear out their communication and make better collaboration through sharing the same data language. Those are one of our clients. And of course, it's always nice to hear this feedback. So let's move to the recap of what we've heard today. And okay, data silos are an issue, and once you realize that you have them, once you realize that your team are operating different numbers when they should be operating the same data language, you should start building a shared data culture and creating a clear data strategy. Then the next step would be aligning on the same metrics and reduce confusion. Of course, once you implement that, you'll reduce the amount of irritation and amount of fights within the team members. Think accessible tools, and that will be easy to understand even for non-technical users. And even the most complicated tools, even within the most complicated tools, you need to find access. You need to find a way to give access for non-technical users, because it will give them more access to data, and they will be freer in making their decisions. Also, data-driven decisions, of course, are fostering and improving collaboration and outcomes. And we are all interested in our games and our products to be growing, and of course, speaking same data language improves those data-driven decisions. And as a special bonus here is our free ebook that devtodev have compiled on how to improve LTV. In games, it also shares some ways to calculate LTV. And that's it from me. Let's chat about analytics if you're around. We're at booth G14. Let's make 2025 a year of growth and data-driven insights with no data silos and everybody speaking the same data-driven language and shared culture. Thank you.
Now we've got a couple minutes left. Does anyone have any questions in the audience or feels like sharing some of their stories of team massive miscommunications from working with different data? I hear some people chuckling. Anyone got a story they're brave enough to share?
Well, just in case, we're over there at booth G14, and I didn't even speak about this thing.
Of course.
About all of the case studies. But yeah, it really is a problem. And like during these 2 days at the booth, people are coming and they're like, okay, we don't understand what our marketing team is like looking into, and product team have different metrics, and we're always going back and forth with fighting. And retention, actually, that retention example, it's a real life example from our clients. And of course, like once you're figuring out your data stack, and once you're just trying to structure all those tools that you're having, it's easier to move forward with the decisions.
100%, and as you're scaling up your team as well, like making sure this is fixed early on is probably going to be the best solution.
Of course, if you have a good common ground, if you have the good base, it's easier to scale forward, and it's even easier to onboard new team members because, okay, you have this reference, you have this Notion page, or we have this Gitbook entry. And as a part of onboarding process, it's easier to align the new members and the whole team. And it actually does look nicer and more professional. Okay, we're calculating this the same way. And that's actually what devtodev helps with. If you're speaking about retention, we have a bunch of ways to calculate it. So you have the whole team aligned on that, definitely.
Yeah, amazing. No, so be sure to go check out their booth. They've got a lot of really insightful information. And as I'm sure everyone has experienced, those kind of, where you were talking about one thing and your marketing person is just on a different planet, or vice versa.
I'm usually that marketing person.
Coming from the marketing side, I'm very aware of the discrepancies that can happen. So definitely be sure to reach out. Can we get another round of applause, please?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.